Mother. So the dollar index keeps rising and rising and rising. I mean, it just doesn't want to stop. We're now at 107.05, friends. 107.05. The dollar index is still out of control. And of course, as long as the dollar index keeps pumping like a crazy maniac, Bitcoin doesn't have a chance for a nice rebound. Bitcoin tried to rebound a bit, as I said in the last days, in the last videos. The chances are high that we might get some form of a rebound, but if we zoom in, friends, that is pathetic. That is, of course, look at this. As soon as it wants to start rising, of course, it gets immediately pushed down. That is not a good rebound. So it barely managed to break through the upper Bollinger Band. Last days I said it's quite likely that we get a push to the upside, because normally Bitcoin likes to fake out, as it did the last times. It always faked out, right? It pretended like, oh look, I'm breaking to the upside, and then bam, other direction. It did it here also, so that's a classic Bitcoin move. Here also, every time fakes out to the upper Bollinger Band, then bam, breaks to the downside, and vice versa. So for me, the chance was a lot higher that it starts breaking to the upside. But of course, if we now get a rejection in the daily chart by the upper Bollinger Band, that is not what we would call a nice rebound, okay? That is not a beautiful rebound. It's getting pushed back by the upper band. So ideally, of course, we would like to continue pushing through the upper Bollinger Band to at least 26,000, because we had this triangle, right? I also drew this triangle the last days. It broke to the upside. So of course, a target for such a triangle break is normally given by the width of the triangle, and then you take this and add it up here. So normally we would go to 27k. Okay, we would go to 27k, but if of course already now we get rejection, like what is that? We already get now rejection? Are you kidding me? So anyways, as long as the dollar index keeps pumping like a crazy maniac, friends, let's just be realistic. The dollar index is making new highs. Like it doesn't want to stop. It doesn't want to stop, okay? And the next resistances for the dollar index are only as high as 109 point something, like the one from September 2002. And of course, then the next one, friends, is the last insane high at 120. So if we're unlucky, this guy just will continue pumping to 109.8, then maybe dump a bit and then continue to 120. I mean, who's to say that this won't happen? Now, sure, we have a bearish divergence in the weekly, but come on, I've been saying this bearish divergence for weeks, for months now. I don't even remember when I started talking about freaking bearish divergences, and this guy still doesn't want to stop. Here, I mean, I've been saying this, I don't know for how long, that this guy makes bearish divergences, but it just doesn't care. It just continues pumping, okay? It just continues freaking pumping and completely ignores every indicator. So, I mean, hey, why am I even using indicators? When will it even stop? I don't know, friends. Well, when will it stop? I have to say, I don't know. We could go to 109. Let's go to the monthly chart. We could go to 109 here. We could even go to 121. We could even break past this resistance, you know, and maybe revisit these areas here. 160. I mean, why not? While we're at it, why not go to 160? Why not continue to 160? Because if I look at the stochastic RSI, it is quite hilarious, but you would think that the stochastic RSI in the monthly chart, being overbought since such a long time, would make us go down, but no, friends, no. If we look at it historically, it could stay up for a long time, and it can stay overbought for a long time. Here, this is the most hilarious case. Look at this. It was on overbought from December 1995 until October 1997. Okay, so if this was to repeat now, we would stay overbought in the dollar index until August 2023. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be a lot of fun for cryptocurrencies? Wouldn't it be so much fun to hold cryptocurrencies until August 2023? That would be so much fun! At least we have cheap coins. Cheap coins. We can buy cheap coins. We can buy even more cheap coins. But unfortunately, I don't have money anymore because I've been buying cheap coins since weeks now, since months now, and just keep buying cheap coins. And I don't have money anymore to buy cheap coins. And then the coins get even cheaper and you buy even more. And then the coins get even cheaper and then you buy even more. And then the coins are even cheaper. So I cannot continue buying for 5 years. So this needs to stop, okay? It needs to stop. So this would come down here in August 2023, something like this. This could happen, you know? And then this would mean that we would still pump for quite a few more months, and only in August 2023 would we start going down, however high we already may be by that time. And we may be very, very high, friends, very, very high, because if I copy paste this mofo here, put it on like the dollar index, what it did in the 90s, and we would get a similar situation, a repeat like this one, friends, we could pump for many more years, and the stochastic RSI coming down would just be this intermediate dump here. Like this intermediate dump wouldn't last long, it would last only a few months, and then we would continue pumping. So in that case, I'm not sure if we would get a rally of any sort like the ones we were used to see, you know, the ones, I don't know if you remember, but Bitcoin back in the day, it used to do rallies, you know, like real rallies. I know it's weird, right? I mean, Bitcoin really used to perform well and used to do real rallies. Like, I don't know, here this one, a factor of 500 growth in 2010, or this one, I don't know if you remember, a factor also 500 growth in 2012 to 2013, or this one also like a factor of 116 growth. You know, those were good times. Bitcoin was performing quite nicely, a factor over 100, and then sure we had brutal corrections. Sure, it dumped here 84% in 2018. Sure, it dumped 86% in 2014, and sure, it dumped even 93% in 2011. But normally Bitcoin was performing nicely. And now look at this shit here. Look at this shit. So you want to tell me that Bitcoin now does a what? Factor of 20? Like that's it. That was it. Like a factor of 20. When we used to do factor of 100, factor 500, now we get a factor of 20, and that was the cycle. Like that was the cycle? So you're telling me that was the cycle, and now we get this pathetic bounce? Like this is not even a bounce. This is a joke. Like I'm not calling this a bounce before we go to 30K. Like I'm sorry guys, I don't even want to talk about a bounce if we don't go to 30K. So I'm starting to talk about a bounce if we revisit this falling logarithmic resistance line. Now if we go to like 30K, so to about 30 to 33K, so that we revisit this falling logarithmic resistance line, that's when I will start talking about a bounce, but not before, because what we have now is not a bounce, it's a joke. It's a freaking joke. So after rising only a factor of 20, like seriously, what we get now is a factor of 20, like we should be happy to have a factor of 20. So after a factor of 20, this mofo falls by 74%. Seriously, like this is what Bitcoin has become now? Like this is we should be happy for that asset? Like we should be happy for a factor of 20 and then a 74% decrease? Like I'm sorry, but Bitcoin back in the day when I started, you know, you were getting factors of 500 and then 86% correction. If you started in 2010, like at the lowest point after the cycle, you were still up 3080%, okay? A factor of 30. You were from the lowest low after the bubble pop, you were up a factor of 30 as compared to before the bubble, okay? Now after the second time, you were still at the lowest low as compared to the lowest low of before the bubble. You were still up a factor of 82. A factor of 82. And then the third time here, the low of $3,100 as compared to the lowest low of 2015, friends, you were still up a quite respectable factor of 18.6. It's still quite okay, I would say. A factor of 18.6. That was still quite nice. But like now, let's just look at what's happening now. So from the low of 3,100 in December 2018, and note that is almost 4 years away now. That was 4 years ago. Like now we are at we are now at a factor of 6 higher. A factor of 6 higher. So you're telling me now I should be thankful and happy that we are a factor of 6 higher now, whereas compared to 2013, we were still in the lowest lows of 2015, up a factor of 82 as compared to before the bubble, like a factor of 82, and now we should be happy and rejoice because of a factor 6? What kind of performance is this? And friends, I'm telling you something. If the dollar index, if the DXY continues pumping like this, if this sucker continues pumping and goes into a mega cycle, goes into a super cycle, okay? I'm talking about a real unfriendly super dollar cycle, like I don't know, this one here, if we just copy paste this performance. If this thing happens, friends, if this happens, and I don't see any reason why it's impossible, it's certainly not impossible, we could just pump for years and years. Friends, if this happens, the best we can hope for is that we get some kind of pump when there's this intermediate dump here. That is all we can hope for. I'm not joking. That is the best we can hope for, that we get some kind of pump in 2024 when there's like some kind of intermediate correction in the dollar index. But apart from that, all the rest of the time, we will not see a good performance. And I think we are already seeing, friends, we are already seeing the decline of Bitcoin's performance. I mean, sure, we know the law of diminishing returns, and that of course Bitcoin's performance cannot be as crazy and good anymore as like 2012, 2013, 2015, like in those times. That is clear, right? But the declines I show you from like pumping a factor of 120 and then correcting 84% is like still insanely much better than the laughable factor 20 we got and then 74% correction. And as I said, if the dollar index continues pumping, friends, if the dollar index continues pumping like a crazy maniac, we could stay down for a long time, okay? For a long time. And then when this intermediate correction, when the dollar does this intermediate dump I showed you before, we could hope for getting a fast, aggressive pump, and then immediately we would go down again. Nothing with like insane rallies like we used to have them. Nothing anymore. And like Bitcoin's performance would be really, really diminished until 2027, as I showed you in that case when I just overlay what the dollar index did in the 90s, this overlay I showed you before. So Bitcoin would have a miserable performance until 2027. And the halvings wouldn't change anything, friends. The halvings wouldn't change anything because the importance of the halvings is getting less and less. So this is really something that I'm afraid of. I'm just telling you, friends, what I'm afraid of. And I see the pathetic performance of Bitcoin that after such an insanely strong dump, like we are talking a dump of 74%, after rising only a factor of 20, like that is, for Bitcoin, that is not much. We got a factor of 21. That was the cycle. Like apparently that was the cycle. Like I was thinking the cycle is not over, but if that was the cycle, I was thinking like this is just a fake out and we're going now to new all-time highs, and that will be the completion of the cycle. But if this is really what's happening, then this is freaking pathetic. Then in 5 years, imagine where will we be at? Like Bitcoin will be like a stock. Hey, I can then go to the stock market. Like what? Why am I wasting my time with coins here? I can go to the stock market. If all we get is like a factor of, like, I don't know, a factor of 3, like will it be a factor of 3 in 5 years? And then a 70% correction or what? And then I should be happy or what? Anyways, so you see, if the dollar index continues pumping, Bitcoin will not do anything. Like you see how insanely correlated this asset is now to the stock market and to the dollar index. And the problem is like this is not a real bounce, friends. I don't even want to call this pathetic thing what it's doing now a bounce, because it has been rejected by the upper daily Bollinger Band. And quite frankly, friends, this is not a good sign. So if the dollar index keeps pumping and if we are unlucky, a rejection by the Bollinger Band here, I mean, this could also mean this year. I'm not joking, this could also turn into this year, and real quick. It could turn into this here real quick if the dollar index keeps pumping above 108, 109. I mean, seriously, I'm just telling you what could happen. Okay, maybe I'm a bit too harsh or too exaggerated, but you know what I'm getting at. Bitcoin's performance is far worse than it used to be, friends, and we have to get used to that. Bitcoin's performance is worse than it used to be because adoption, that is the problem with Bitcoin. The main gripe I have with Bitcoin. Bitcoin was promised as this safe haven asset, and it somehow feels like it's failing this. It somehow feels to me like it's failing its promise. So instead of being the safe haven asset, it has just become a speculative asset by bankers and hedge funds and Wall Street guys who are treating this exactly like any other risk asset, like stocks, like any other stock index, like the Nasdaq and so on. So I'm a bit disappointed. Honestly, I'm really a bit disappointed, and I would like to see, for Bitcoin to redeem itself in my eyes, I want to see better performance, because seriously, friends, I didn't come to coins, I didn't start with coins to get a factor of 21 and then a 74% drop. I didn't come to coins for that shit. Let us pray collectively that the CPI reading on the 13th of July will not be too high and that the inflation will be lower than expected, because that would lead to dumps of the dollar index, because that would mean that the Fed will not tighten as much anymore. Then the dollar index would instantly dump, and that in turn would mean that the stock market will be pumping, and Bitcoin in turn will also be pumping in unison with the stock market. Let us really, I'm not joking, let us really pray. Let us pray that this will happen, because right now the dollar index only has this last resistance here. It has only this last resistance, friends, at 109.8, and then that's it. Then the next resistance is here at 120. And if the dollar index pumps to 120, like Bitcoin is going lower, you can be pretty sure that we are freaking going lower. Bitcoin will visit the lower part of this long-term trend channel, and we will go here to these areas. You can be pretty sure about it. You can be pretty sure about it. So let us hope that the CPI data on the 13th of July will be in our favor, because if not, I'm not sure if this sucker can bounce, because you see we're getting a strong suppression of this bounce, immediately a strong suppression, just because the dollar index is rising. That's not a good performance. That's not a good, I'm sorry, but that's not a good performance. That is my current picture. It's not a good picture, because when the dollar keeps pumping, Bitcoin is down. That's pretty simple. Dollar pumping, Bitcoin bad. Dollar weak, Bitcoin good. That's how easy it has become. That's how easy coins have become. So we should just hope that the dollar index will reverse at some point, because if not, friends, these years will be some really ugly years in the crypto market, and we could have really ugly and unimpressive performance for a long time. And look at this, the lower end of this channel is still at 67,000 as late as June 2026. So it could be dragged out until June 2026 until we make new all-time highs in the worst case. Just saying, you know. So friends, this is unfortunately not the best day, because the dollar index is strong, and the recovery, which I was really looking forward to, that we get some really nice bounce, has not yet come to fruition. If that hopefully will change, maybe I will do videos where I will be in a better mood. But right now, I just am completely honest with you. Right now, this is not good. This is not looking amazing. So the dollar index is just too strong, and Bitcoin is getting rejected. That's not good. So then, friends, sorry for this rant. If you found this video helpful, please like, and I would be happy if you would join this illustrious club of people and would subscribe to this channel. Have a nice day, friends, and see you in the next video. Ciao!